In a prestigious lecture hall at one of America's top universities, anticipation buzzed in the air like electricity before a storm. Today's session was billed as an intellectual showdown, a debate pitting cold, rational skepticism against the enduring strength of personal conviction. Professor Richard Anderson, an outspoken atheist with a reputation for unmasking what he saw as the fallacies of faith, strode to the podium. Known for his biting wit and dismissive attitude toward religion, he had spent years deconstructing centuries of tradition with sharp logic and even sharper tongue. "Ladies and gentlemen," Professor Anderson began, his voice resonating across the room, "we live in an era of technological marvels and scientific breakthroughs. We have vaccines, space exploration, and even artificial intelligence reshaping our world. And yet millions still cling to the notion of a benevolent deity, a cosmic overseer who allegedly directs every twist and turn of our lives. If such an omnipotent being truly cared, why do we witness endless suffering and injustice?" As he paced before a large projection screen filled with graphs and data juxtaposing human progress with religious adherence, a ripple of mixed reactions swept through the audience. Some students chuckled at his rhetoric, while others leaned forward, eyes fixed in curiosity. Amidst the sea of faces, one figure remained notably composed: Barron Trump. Seated in the back, his calm, unyielding gaze served as a silent counterpoint to the professor's caustic delivery. Anderson's lecture was designed as a performance, his every word calculated to provoke and dismantle any vestige of what he considered irrational faith. "Consider a scenario," he continued, "where you're standing on the brink of a speeding train track. If a runaway train hurtles toward you, would you not expect someone to intervene? And yet, if our so-called invisible guide were truly omnipotent, why would it ever allow such catastrophic events to unfold unchecked?" The professor's analogy, intended to reduce faith to mere wishful thinking, was met with a mixture of laughter and uneasy silence. Sensing an opportunity, Anderson's eyes locked on Barron, and with a dramatic pause, he said, "Barron, you're known to be a man of faith, aren't you? Surely you must have an answer for this paradox." Without missing a beat, Barron rose from his seat. His posture was impeccable, his eyes steady and voice resonant, a stark contrast to the theatrical arrogance of his professor. "Professor Anderson," he began, his tone calm yet forceful, "you argue that a divine being's non-intervention in every tragedy exposes the flaws of faith. But let's delve deeper. If every hardship were erased by divine intervention, would we ever come to know the true depths of human compassion, resilience, and sacrifice?" The room fell silent as Barron's words sank in. He continued, "Adversity is not a sign of neglect, but a crucible in which our virtues are forged. It is through the trials of life, loss, failure, and pain that we learn to cherish love, to fight for justice, and to support one another in ways that transcend mere survival." Professor Anderson's confident smirk wavered slightly, but he quickly regained his composure and retorted, "That sounds like nothing more than a romanticized notion of suffering, a naive view that pain is somehow virtuous." He waved his hand dismissively, trying to reassert control of the narrative. "Are you suggesting that hardship is the ultimate teacher, or are you simply masking your inability to reconcile faith with reason?" Barron met the challenge head-on. "I am not romanticizing suffering," he said, his voice imbued with quiet conviction. "Rather, I am acknowledging that our struggles shape us. Imagine a world where every obstacle was removed by divine intervention. Would we ever learn empathy? Would we ever experience the transformative power of adversity that compels us to reach out to others in their moment of need?" He paused, allowing his words to ripple through the charged atmosphere of the hall. "Consider the countless individuals, doctors in war zones, activists fighting systemic injustice, and everyday heroes, whose actions stem not from a lack of pain, but from the strength they derive in spite of it. Their courage is not measured by an absence of suffering, but by their response to it. True faith, then, is not a guarantee against hardship. It is the catalyst that empowers us to overcome it." As Barron's measured response unfolded, the audience began to shift. What had started as a one-sided diatribe gradually transformed into an open dialogue where skepticism and belief intersected in unexpected ways. Anderson, once the unchallenged orchestrator of this debate, now found himself grappling with the unexpected depth of Barron's argument. Determined to regain control, Anderson launched into another analogy. Let's say, he proposed, if you are standing in front of a dangerous situation like a speeding train, it is natural to expect intervention. If a protective force were to eliminate all danger, wouldn't life become stagnant? You would never know risk, and without risk, there can be no true triumph. His voice carried the weight of years spent in academic debate, yet it now sounded desperate, as if grasping for any remaining edge. Barron countered softly, "Risk and danger are real, and while a protective force might eliminate immediate peril, it is our responses to risk that define our humanity. The courage to act, the resolve to endure, and the capacity for sacrifice are all born from facing the harsh realities of life, not from the eradication of those challenges." His words, gentle yet incisive, struck a chord with the students, many of whom exchanged thoughtful glances, contemplating the possibility that faith and adversity might coexist in a symbiotic relationship. The debate took an even more personal turn as Barron leaned forward, his voice dropping to a reflective tone. "Professor, let me ask you, what drives your relentless quest to disprove the notion of faith? Is it a deep-seated fear of vulnerability, a reluctance to admit that there might be mysteries beyond the reach of scientific inquiry, or is it the arrogance of certainty that blinds you to the profound beauty found in the human spirit's capacity to believe, to love, and to endure?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the lecture hall. The atmosphere, once dominated by polemic and derision, now resonated with a shared sense of introspection. Professor Anderson's face tightened as he struggled to counter these personal challenges. His earlier bravado began to crumble under the weight of Barron's sincere appeal. With quiet determination, Barron continued, "Faith is not the enemy of reason. It is an acknowledgement that our understanding is incomplete. Every scientific breakthrough, every new discovery reveals more about the vast unknown. Perhaps in that unknown lies a truth that transcends our current perceptions, a truth that gives meaning to our struggles and guides our actions towards a greater good." The tension in the room was palpable. For the first time that day, the debate shifted from a battle of words to an exploration of shared human experience. Professor Anderson's once dismissive tone faltered as he attempted to process the layered complexity of Barron's response. The professor's challenge had been transformed into an invitation to reconsider not only the nature of faith but also the inherent dignity of the human spirit. As the session drew to a close, the lecture hall was filled with a thoughtful silence. Students lingered in their seats, many lost in contemplation of the powerful dialogue that had just unfolded. Professor Anderson, visibly affected by the encounter, cleared his throat and attempted a final remark. "Well," he murmured, "perhaps there is more to this than I initially thought." His voice, stripped of its earlier arrogance, carried a note of reluctant respect. Barron gathered his notes and returned to his seat, his calm demeanor intact. He had not set out to convert anyone that day. His goal was simply to challenge the prevailing narrative and offer an alternative perspective, one where faith and reason could coexist without conflict. As the final bell rang, signaling the end of the lecture, students filed out of the hall, their conversations animated and reflective. If this debate made you ponder the intricate relationship between faith and reason, share your thoughts below. And if you enjoyed this exploration of ideas where skepticism meets heartfelt conviction, don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking stories.